Hey, it's Alan Berg. Before we get into this episode, I'm starting something called Ask Me Anything. That's right. You submit your questions and they could become an entire episode or something that I answer at the end of an episode. To submit your questions, look for the red button at podcast.alanberg.com. That's right, podcast.alanberg.com. Click on the red button, submit your question, and maybe you'll hear it here on the podcast. Thanks. Scaling up, scaling down, scaling laterally. Laterally, what does that mean? Listen to this episode and find out. Welcome to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Berg. I'm a speaker, author, sales trainer, website reviewer, and I help businesses like yours sell more, profit more, and have more fun doing it. Enjoy this episode. Hi, it's Alan Berg. Welcome back to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I am so happy to have my friend David Osborne on today to talk about something a little different with scaling. David, how you doing?
Hey, I am great. How are you doing, Al?
I am doing wonderful. And you and I were talking the other day. You actually reached out to me about, helping with your business. You had some questions. And it got me thinking, I haven't had anybody on the podcast recently to talk about scaling because I've talked about scaling up a business, right? So you're an entertainment company and those people listening, not everybody's entertainment, but, going from in a DJ world from single op to multi-op, right? If you're a photographer, it's just you to a bunch of people. You have one venue to have a bunch of venues, whatever it is, right? Just different kinds of scaling. I've also had people on talking about scaling down, where they went from having a whole bunch of people to having fewer people or maybe just them. But I haven't had anybody on to do what we were talking about with your business, which is you saw a hole in the market at a price point much lower than another part of the market. And you actually have two companies running in parallel for that. And I thought, this is interesting. It was interesting to me, but I think this is interesting here as well. So give us a little bit of how did you start in entertainment yourself? You didn't start out by doing this, right? So how did you start?
Yeah, so I started in entertainment. Well, if you talk to my mom, I started in entertainment from the day I was born. And now I have a 5-year-old who is following in my footsteps very nicely with his gold blazer that he wears to school. But professionally, I graduated the University of Georgia in 2004, and then 4 years later, a lot of my friends were getting married. I was at that 25, 26-year-old period and going to a lot of weddings. I was noticing that the quality of the entertainment was rather terrible. And being the entertainer that I was, the tech nerd that I was, and the trained musician that I was, I kind of was like, you know what? I think I could probably do this. I live on stage. I am on stage daily. So I was like, I'm going to buy some gear. And some friends invited me to do their wedding. And it was love at first gig, man. I loved it. I fell in love with it. And then from '08 to 17, I did both. I taught elementary school music and I was a DJ at the same time. And then in 17, I went full time.
Nice. So you were teaching violin to those third and fourth graders?
No, I was teaching general music for K to
Okay.
5.
Okay, because
So
I have
song
the
dance.
utmost respect for the people that teach violin to little kids, and I'm a musician as well. My sons are also musicians, but we'd go to concerts, and violin at that age is like a whole bunch of cats in the room. They're getting
It
strangled.
is.
It is. It's adorable. It's adorable, but it's a little much. Anyway, so that's you. That's David doing David, right? Just you.
Just
When
me.
did when did you bring somebody else on?
In 2017. So the year that
Okay.
last semester that I was teaching, I saw the writing on the wall. My wife also was teaching and she decided that she was going to stop teaching. And we're like, well, guess what, folks? I can't just sustain my family on just my income here. So we started a photo booth division. And then my friend Chris from music school, he stopped teaching as well. And I was like, okay, this is perfect storm. Why don't you come work for me? And I affectionately say he was the easiest person to train in the world, which is a curse because when I went to the second and third, it didn't work out so good.
Yeah, you had a known commodity there. Someone also music school, also the personality and all. And that listen, people is always going to be the problem of any business, right?
Right.
When I was at the Knot and I had 50, 60 sales reps, I said the one thing I'll never be able to control is people. People get married, people get divorced, people get have kids, people move away, people's partners, things happen, people get sick, stuff happens. You can't control that. But you do the best you can by finding the people that are the best fit. So you've obviously gone beyond Chris. But at this point, now were you and Chris, were you charging the same for both of you?
Definitely not. No.
Okay. All right. And but now what about today? Does Chris have been doing this for a long time with you? Do you charge the same for Chris as for you?
Nope.
Okay, right, because you're
But
still the owner of the company.
correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But you have other people, and do you have multiple price points with those people?
We have multiple price points across the different brands.
Okay. So let's talk about the different brands. So at what point did you say, okay, we're at this price point? Now was that a higher price point, would you say?
Yeah, we were on the it was 2019. So it was two
Okay.
years after I'd gone full time. So we were already on the high end, and it was pretty much just me and Chris,
Okay.
higher than the average.
Okay, good. That's fine. I like being higher than the average. I think that's a great place to be. I actually always say the the further my prices got from other people, I think the more in demand I became, because then people start questioning, oh, you're not just a little bit more, you're a lot more. What do I get for a lot more that I don't get for that? I think when your price is too close to other people, even if you're a little bit more, now it's just like you're just the more expensive option, but they look the same. All right,
Right.
but you saw, let's talk about this lateral expansion. You saw a big demand at the lower end. Was that because people were reaching out to you and couldn't afford you?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you could just say no.
I could just say no. However, the budget, I call it a budget brand, but our second company solved a bigger problem than just the price point, which is why we've kept it around for so long and why we still, why we still put a lot of energy into it. It solved the problem of training and recruiting. And the secondary solution was that it solved the problem of the fact that my local town needs a lower price solution that's still quality. The signature brand, the higher price brand, most of our clients, we live in a college town, Athens, Georgia, University of Georgia's here. Most of our higher end clients went to the university, went off somewhere else, Atlanta, LA, New York, Chicago, whatever. They go off, make some big bucks. They come back to the alma mater to get married. They've got money to spend. But the local folks, it's not a very, it's surrounded by farmlands and chicken farms.
Right. Very common in college towns, right?
Yeah,
And
of
you
course.
have this transient population there as well. Is that REM country? Is that
It is.
there you go. Okay. So again, you see this because I know I have clients that'll see that and they'll say that's just not my market and that's it. But you saw that other part, which is I need to train people and I need to get them out there doing actual events, because it's one thing to train someone in a classroom. It's another thing to actually have them there and doing actual events, but you're not charging what you do for we'll call it the premium brand, because they're not yet delivering that. Uh,
Yeah,
but you also, we were talking the other day, you also said they also get 5-star reviews, right?
they
Like,
do.
right, which is great. And but it's not the same 5-star as the higher brand, right? And that's what I was telling you about. A friend of mine who's got a wedding band who complained that this mass market, DJ company got 5-star, it got their award on the knot, and they got his award. And he said, "How can mine be worth anything if they got it?" I said, "Because those people got what they wanted and more, and they gave them 5 stars, and your people get what they wanted for 5 times the price," right? And they give you 5 stars as well. So it's people's expectations, and when you meet or exceed them, then they give you the great review there. So um, you also had some confusion among the people that refer you. So how what's going on with that?
So, I think when I talk to other DJ company owners or aspiring owners that want to have multiple brands, one of the things that comes up all the time is how do vendors separate you, or like, people will say, "Hey, I want to start a second company, but I don't want anyone to know that I'm doing it. I don't want to get caught up in the shuffle." And
Right.
I originally thought that I wanted to do that as well in 2019 until I realized that it was going to be a really long road and really difficult to keep me out of it. And so I just went the other direction and I put myself out there. There's still a video on my Facebook of two of me where one of me is wearing one company shirt and then there's another of me wearing the other company shirt, and we have a conversation about the brands and what they do and how they work. And so
I
then
like that.
everyone got associated with me. Both brands
Right.
are some planners and some venues are like, "Oh, you work with David." And I'm like,
Right.
"Well, yes." But they're different companies, completely different brands, completely different staff, equipment, systems, processes, everything. Totally different, except for me.
Right.
And that's been the biggest source of the confusion just over the years is that people, I think people that are more relational based humans, they see the connection between the person. They go, oh, you work with David, so you must, they just see this web. They don't see
Right.
this, they don't see the division.
Right. And again, that's the blinders that we all have on is they see that. Now, the good news is doing it the way you did it, because people know you, they know that you're putting out a quality product, whatever the price point, they're putting out a quality product. So that's why doing that. That's why saying it would have been a long road the other way is like, nobody knows this company. Nobody knows this brand. Nobody knows these people. It would be like you, David, moving to Oklahoma tomorrow, right?
Right.
You're just starting from scratch and it's a harder road over there. My first thought when you were telling me that was Lexus and Toyota,
Yeah.
right? And everybody knows that Toyota owns Lexus, but people don't go to Lexus and go, oh, it's just a fancy Toyota. If that's what you think, you're probably not going to buy it, right?
Correct.
And that's okay because you can go buy a Toyota. It's
And
all right.
what's fun to watch is on the administrative side when we see leads come in. If someone inquires with both brands, usually they go with the cheaper one.
Right.
Usually, because that means they've contacted both companies almost arbitrarily. You can tell that they didn't spend any time looking around the website because if they did, they would have picked one.
Right.
And if we get both, they just carte blanche, just click, contact, and then we go, okay. It's very rare for them to pick the signature brand after reaching out to both because they're just not as discerning.
And the reputation of both is really good. The reviews are really good. So people have to perceive a difference. And if they don't perceive any difference, we never pay more. Doesn't matter what it is that we're buying. We don't go to a pricier restaurant and then go back again if we're thinking, well, that was about as good as Fridays, so I might as, Chili's, that was like that, right? We only go back because the experience, the service, whatever was better. And that's with anything that we do. Why does anybody buy a Lexus? Right? Partly because of status, partly because, they want to be seen in that. My wife told me years ago, finally, she admitted, I like driving a BMW. Yeah, it didn't have to be new, but she likes driving a BMW. Okay, well, she drives a BMW and she's happy. And you know what they say, if mommy ain't happy, right?
Right.
Or the actually updated version is happy spouse, happy house. Right.
Oh, I
So
like that.
yes, that's
I
a
like
that's
that. I
a
haven't heard that
that's a
one.
more that's a 2024 version. There you go. Happy
Yes.
spouse, happy house. And but again, could she drive another car? Yeah, she has. She's had many, many, many different kinds of cars over the years. She likes that. There you go. That's an intangible. It's a total intangible, right? I drive an Audi. She could drive an Audi and sure she'd be happy with it. But nope, she likes getting in that BMW. Great, great. It's wonderful. It's got 80,000 miles on it and it's paid off. I'm very happy for her. There you go.
There's a lot to celebrate there.
There is a lot. That was
Yeah.
it. I'd say my favorite feature of both of our cars is that they're fully paid off. That is my favorite feature. Working on that for the house, but that's with the cars. So
Yeah.
so the what you and I talked about the other day on the consultation was this idea of how do you get these different venues to not recommend both brands because you don't want more leads like that. You don't want more leads. You want the higher end ones referring the premium brand. You want the other ones referring the more, budget friendly brand. So what have you decided on that?
Well, what we've decided is to continue to do what we started doing, which is to hedge them. Is to say these venues we're going to put time and energy into these venues supporting this brand, and these other venues we're going to support this other brand. And a few years ago, the way that we started doing that was I did a research study, just like you would do a competitor analysis, and I went and I researched every venue within 2 hours of our town, and a lot of the venues will have their pricing on their sites or the ranges, but a lot didn't, so we'd have to inquire. And what we determined for our market is that if they charged less than $5,000 for their services for a venue, we just put them on this list. And this was for the Athens
Right.
DJ service or our budget brand. If they charged more than $5,000 or they had more complicated scenarios, we'd put them on the signature level brand, and then we just started pounding the pavement. And we'd go, hey, this is during COVID, I went to every venue that was on the lower list, and I would bring a box of donuts, and I'd wear the budget brand shirt, and I'd say, hey, I'm David. And that's really how we got traction on that company, going to all these barn venues in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah. And then you change your shirt and go to the other ones.
Correct. Yeah. And what was interesting is that when I was managing both brands myself and I was doing all the management and all the sales and all the operations, it was relatively easy to navigate all of this because I was living in my own owner head. But when we started to scale the administrative side and I started bringing on people to do different administrative tasks, one of my DJs, who's wonderful, started doing sales for Athens DJ Service, the budget brand, and he's very good at it. He actually was in your class in MEX this year,
Yeah.
and the energy that he put behind sales was so good that I started noticing that they were taking business from our signature brand, and I was like, "Oh no!" Like, okay, and it started to. If you look at all the data from 2023, I mean, it was really starting to just take over, and we're like, "Whoa, average dollar sales going down. We gotta move this over here." And so we created an entire strategy in quarter 4 to get everything back on track. And we've had to do all the same things. Go back to those same venues that support our signature brand and say no more budget brand. Like hedge that out. Have a dedicated marketing campaign with social media and all the different relationship building techniques to get those back on track. And it's working. It's working well.
It's funny when you have a salesperson that's too good, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. And now the fit that we found is that salesperson does sales for both brands, and they can see the totality of the relationship between the two brands in the market now, and that has made the biggest difference for how we can have that lateral expansion, because our sales team's not competing against each other. They're moving leads where they need to go.
Right. And that's the key. Is there are times when you want to compete against yourself. You actually don't. Right. Like I have companies that own multiple venues, and we'd rather be competing with ourselves, right? Because we're going to win one way or another. We're going to win, right? But those venues might be similar price points, just different neighborhoods, availability, stuff like that. But here it's the different price point. And that's why I said sometimes expanding that difference between the two price points at least makes it, oh, I get it now. But we also talked about you have to be able to explain what is the difference. It can't just be that we charge twice as much, because that's never a good answer, right? There's got to be a perceived value difference. And I say perceived because it doesn't have to be tangible, right? The perceived value difference is my wife driving a BMW, again, say that versus let's say an Audi, right? Same size SUV, same whatever, same price point. Okay. Right. But why would somebody pay more for a BMW than a Hyundai? Right.
It's all priorities. Yeah.
Right. Because we know that if you look on paper, they look the same, right? They have 4 wheels and a steering wheel and 28 airbags and Bluetooth and right. Yeah. You look at it, they have everything the same. Why is the difference? And a lot of that difference is intangible. It's I want to be associated with that brand. And that's, again, your premium brand is associated with the higher end venues. The other one is associated with people that are looking to spend less on their wedding. And there it is. So your salesperson is wearing these 2 hats, right?
Yeah.
Has to take, well, which lead is that? Who am I talking to? But that's also an important lesson, because I don't care if you're at just one company, you have to hit the reset button before every call, before every email. It's not I got to change brands here, right? But you have to put that reset button and say, this conversation has nothing to do with the last one. They have to say it has nothing to do with the last one, because it's not about what that person is saying. It's about what they're hearing.
It's totally about that. And it's totally about understanding their expectations and understanding their priorities. It's like, you were saying, the way that we differentiate in an elevator pitch or in a quick conversation, if you said, David, tell me the difference between your two brands, it's easy. It didn't used to be easy, but I can articulate it. There are people that say, I just need a DJ. Mm-hmm. JUST, just need a DJ. They'll say that about other vendors too. I just need a caterer. It doesn't really matter. But when people say just need a DJ, ding, 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 door number 1.
Right.
If someone says, listen, I've been to 10 weddings, I've been to 20 weddings, I've been a bridesmaid in 7 of them, and I've seen good and I've seen bad, and I need my wedding to be spectacular. I need to impress people, and I want to feel like a rock star. Door number 2.
There you go. Again, priorities, right?
Priorities.
And that's anything we spend on in life. I remember I was speaking at a wedding expo to couples. It was interesting because I don't usually get to do that. And I said, how did you set your budget? And I was waiting for somebody eventually who said, we saw a survey that said the average cost of a wedding is this. And I said, right. And if you would like to have a nice average wedding, that's what it costs. Not a bad wedding, not an exceptional wedding, but you want to have a nice wedding. That's what it costs on average. I said, what's the most important thing to you? And it was a bride. And she said, the food. I said, well, you're going to spend above average for your food. because
Yeah.
the food's the most important thing. Now, you might not spend above average for other things, but you're going to spend above average for your food. So if it says the average cost of catering is this, expect to spend more if that's the most important thing. Funny thing was the next couple, I said, what's the most important thing to you? And they said the photo booth. I said, really? Good.
Yeah.
I said, then find the coolest photo booth experience that you can get because that's important to you. And who knows, they might have chicken fingers for the meal, right? But that's the
100%.
most important thing. And that's by listening is what we hear that. How important is this? But it's also by asking questions. And your person that was in my workshop, we talked about asking better questions. What have you seen at other weddings and events that you definitely want? What have you seen you don't want at yours, right? What kind of experiences? Have you thought about something fun for your guests when they're not dancing or eating, right? It's just asking a question, which gives me permission to tell you what we can do for you instead of what most people do. And you know, this is just tell you what they can do for you.
Yeah.
Right. And you might not care.
And we put this information in our email campaigns, and it's on our website. And it's the same advice I give my friends. And the reason why it ended up on our website is because I was telling all of my friends and my family this. I was, oh, John's getting married. Oh, John, listen, I'm in the industry. Let me tell you, this is the way to have the best wedding possible. I said, you got to sit down, make a list of everything that you're going to have at your wedding, every single thing, the dress, the catering, the everything. And then, your fiance, do the same thing, but separately, like write them all down, number them, prioritize them, and then compare your lists. And the things that are on 1, 2, 3, the little overlap where you have the top priorities, boom, go big on those. And if it's number 12 or 13,
Right.
forget about it. It's
Right. Right.
get to it if you can get to it. If not, you'll be fine. It just
Right.
depends on what's important to you.
Right. And if you're the first of your friends or relatives getting married, you don't have that history there. If you're the 12th, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I've seen some stuff. I've seen what this is over here. I have an article on my website about video, which we don't have for our wedding. And it's, let's watch our first dance. Oh, that's right. We can't. It's the
Right.
name of the article. And it's not that we said no to video. My sister got married the year before, didn't have it. Our best friends got married the year before, didn't have it. Right? Nobody had it. It wasn't that it wasn't even on the radar. It wasn't even on the list. Yes or no. And we found movies of my parents' wedding in 1954, professional movies, 1954.
Whoa.
Right. I can watch no sound that. I gave my parents for their 40th anniversary a compilation of their wedding and the reels when my sister and I were born, 8mm reels, my kids' VHSs, put it all together into this 40-year timeline. I'll never have that because we don't have the beginning of that. And how would you know it's important if it wasn't even on the radar? It wasn't even a question there. So it's just, if you're getting a chance to talk to someone, this is the most important part. They're already interested in something like what you do, right? If they want your results, they have to pay your price. And if they want the Sound Insight price, results, they have to pay the Sound Insight price. If they need just the DJ, who, by the way, is going to make nice announcements, is going to play really good music, and he's going to get 5-star reviews, then it's the Athens DJ.
100%. And that's exactly how that's how we do everything on the administrative side. That's how we handle everything with our equipment systems. That's how we handle everything with our training processes and all of our checkpoints and certifications. Is like it all matches. Everything on the front and the back match. Front of house, back of house, all of the things that you see, all the things that only we see. There's like matching systems and processes for support for both things.
So that idea, the elevator pitch, I actually had a conversation with somebody the other day that came up with this new idea and she wanted to run it by me. And I challenged her on the elevator pitch. I said, okay, you got 7 seconds to tell me what this is. Right. And very few people can do that. Right. Because 7 seconds goes by fast. If I say you have 30 seconds, it seems like an eternity, but 7 seconds is fast. But 7 seconds is tell me enough for me to want to hear more. And I actually went to a session at a speaker conference where I don't know if you remember this, maybe you're not old enough, but Mad Libs. Do you know what Mad Libs is?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. She didn't. I felt old. She didn't know what Mad Libs was. But for those of you who don't know what Mad Libs, it's you have a story that has blank lines in it. And then you fill in the words in the blank lines and it makes the story, finishes the story. And it could go any way at all because you can say that a penguin was on Wall Street, whatever, you could just fill it in.
It's silly.
And it is. But I said, so this is what I was taught there, which is I help blank do blank so that blank.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's it. And those of you listening, challenge yourself on that. If somebody's online at the grocery store behind you and says, oh, you're that film, you're the DJ, you're the photographer, you're the whatever, right? All right. What do? Can you say, I help couples have amazing times at their events so that they and their guests say it was the best time they ever had, whatever, something like that. You want them, my friend calls it the Scooby-Doo. You want them to go, ooh?
Yeah. Ooh, Alan, let's hear yours.
I help wedding and event professionals sell more, profit more, and have more fun doing it.
Heck yeah.
She didn't like the end of mine, though. She didn't like to have more fun doing it. She liked the idea of have more fun doing it, but it wasn't a so that, right? So that they have more fun doing it wasn't quite what she wanted. So it's, I help wedding and event professionals sell more, profit more, have more fun doing it so that they can help more couples have great weddings. Maybe something like that. So she liked
that might be
80% of mine. Yeah, it was 8 seconds. She liked 80% of mine. She didn't like the end over there. But you see people just tripping over their words because they want to tell you and tell you and tell you and tell you and tell you. But no, it's not about your services, your products, right? It's about the experiences you're creating for people. So for Sound Insight, what's your 7 seconds?
My 7 seconds is I'm David with Sound Insight, and I help really fun couples have rager wedding receptions.
Okay.
I don't have a so that, but I think it's the same kind of thing.
So that their guests will remember it for years.
Yeah. So they get sweaty.
There you go.
And then, yeah. So, and we've one for
and Athens. Yeah.
I don't have one for Athens, but we have I need one. It's because I never introduced myself from that company.
But you don't have to say I'm David. You just say that, or you could even have Athens could have its own, right?
That's a good point.
We help fun couples in what are you, Northeast Georgia? Is that where you are?
Northeast Georgia.
Northeast, right? We help fun couples in Northeast Georgia have amazing weddings on a budget, right? And then there's a so that, right?
So that no one messes up your name.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm learning so much. This is great. Yeah. I never thought, it's funny that I never thought about having one of those because like I said, when I go to chamber meetings or whatever, right. I always introduce myself and because I DJ for that company. I DJ for the
right. Right. So on the other side, again, you also want to equip your people with that same message. So everybody's singing the same thing there is doing that. So before we finish, what piece of advice would you give to somebody who is at one part of a market, and it could be either any part, and is thinking, hey, I'm missing out on this other part of it. Again, yours solve two purposes or maybe multiple purposes. It's your training ground as well as it's a profit center for you. And that was one question I had asked David, which is, right, great, you have this lower end brand, but are you profiting? And you said, oh yeah, and it's training my people. Win-win. Here you go. Total win. What would you say to people? Because remember, there's venues, there's photographers, there's videographers, invitation people. People are thinking about moving into a different part of the market. What one thing would you say, hey, if I did this again, don't do this, or definitely do that?
One piece of advice would be getting someone else to help run that other division sooner than later is probably the biggest piece of advice I could give, because it is just a lot. It's a lot of extra administration to have more than one brand. So delegating either, sales for both, or someone that does the entire other venue, or whatever. I'm thinking if you're a photographer, like having an editor that just handles all the things for that brand, something that can help alleviate the administrative burden of having two whole complete separate brands is something I would have done a lot sooner.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the things I had said to you is you have to treat them like two separate companies, because they are, and I don't care if you have one LLC or one S Corp or C Corp or whatever it is, they are two separate companies because you're trying to sell them that way to these different venues and to the different couples. So, treat it that way from the beginning. Kind of like what I say to people when they get into the business, let's say they leave a company, start their own business, and it's part-time. Yeah, treat it like a full-time business, right? Don't treat it like a part-time business, because it'll always be a part-time business. If you have any aspirations of it being bigger, feed it, nurture it, give it the love that it needs to have. If it's the ugly stepchild and it stays there, it's never going to give you what you need out of it. So we will have in the show notes how to get a hold of you, David, in social and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and sharing your experience with us. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe to this channel and post a review on your chosen platform, Apple Podcasts or whichever one. If you have any questions about anything in this episode or any of my episodes, email me directly at alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com or visit my website, alanberg.com. ALANDERG.com. If you have any suggestions for future topics or guests that you'd like to see, please again email me or visit my website. Thanks for listening.